The Senate inquiry held 3 hearings across the country earlier this year to examine the impact of pollution on air quality and health. Today, its findings were released.
This is a Senate committee made up of members of all political parties, led by the Greens.
It noted that pollution, particularly from mining and the transport of coal, was an issue. Among the long list of recommendations, calls for covers on all coal wagons, buffer zones around pollution sources and improved pollution monitoring. It also wants the Commonwealth to create a process for assessing the cumulative impacts of coal mine developments and develop national emissions standards.
Now it is up to the government to say we've got proof that the coal industry is impacting on people's health. It's up to us to act.
The Minerals Council of Australia has slammed the report, saying the cost of covering all coal trains would hurt the sector, which is already feeling the pinch of a tough economic climate.
No surprise that one of those recommendations was to cover coal wagons. I suggest that that recommendation was actually written prior to the ink actually drying on the Senate inquiry's terms of reference.
The Hunter Valley coal chain is also scathing of the scope of the inquiry.
It's politically motivated, it's Greens dominated, and more importantly, it's actually devoid of science and facts. This is a Senate inquiry that essentially is the collection of people's perceptions in relation to an issue.
The New South Wales government says it will consider the recommendations in due course, while the Australian Rail Track Corporation is yet to comment. Kath Landers, NBN News.
I'm going to make sure that you never touch that. But don't ever.
At school, Ted Polglaze is just one of the boys.
I am very smart, but the most thing I do not like that much is writing. I don't like it, but I'm good at it. I don't like reading either, but I'm good at it.
But it's been a long, difficult road for this determined 7-year-old.
He had a serious brain injury and probably minimally responsive when he came to the hospital.
With regular speech, physio and occupational therapy, he's improved leaps and bounds.
From a boy that was originally only attending school a couple of days a week for about an hour, he's now attending full time. He doesn't need as much aid time. He's no longer using his wheelchair.
Ted excels at school. He's a very bright little boy. He's reading at about a year 3, year 4 level. So he's reading Roald Dahl novels and things like that in class.
While in the playground, Ted appears to be king of the kids. Not one to shy away from the spotlight.
I don't get shy. So, I don't know, I'm pretty awesome. Yeah.
He's one of 1.6 million Australians affected by an acquired brain injury. This week, experts are promoting the benefits of brain research, something Ted is a shining example of.
Ted's future will be whatever he desires. He will be very successful in whatever he chooses, and in school life and beyond.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
One year at a time, a couple of times there, a couple of injuries in the knee and the jaw. I thought about hanging them up a bit earlier. You can come down and watch the game and you get the itch, don't you?
Having earned promotion to the NBN State League, simply avoiding relegation would have been an achievement for Lambton.
It was good at the start of the year. We flew under the radar a little bit, and I guess everyone predicted us to come second last early on.
The Jaffers will have Abe Wheelhouse and Matt Kenny available for their semi-final with Hamilton. In contrast, Olympic will be missing injured striker Dave Hodgson.
Dave's a massive loss to us. He's a good, cool head up front, holds the ball up very well.
His teammates believe they can cover the loss.
We come in as a bit of an underdog, I think, and I think from here on in we'll begin to hit our straps. We've got a lot of experience with semi-finals football, so we'll be able to do the job, I think.
Lambton heads into the game full of confidence, having beaten Hamilton 2-1 twice, but the coach is urging caution.
I think it could go on to extra time, and whoever gets that little bit of luck on the day will take away the win.
Western knows all about Lambton's progress, beaten 8-0 by the Jaffers last weekend.
We sort of spoke about it after the game last week, just to really put it behind us. It was a setback. We know we played badly. We know we won't put that sort of effort in again, so it's just that competition's over and we start a new one.
The Bears face Edgeworth in the elimination semi, missing Jason Cowburn and Rob Macbeth. The Eagles will be without Aaron Pritchard and Chris Wheeler, ruled out because of suspension and injury. 17-year-old Brodie Taylor admits he'll have some nerves when he starts just his second game in first grade.
The start of the game will be very hard, but once you get into it, then it should be fine. Mark Wilson's a very good player, even though he's really old. He's still very good. Should be good playing alongside him.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
On the starting blocks, I didn't feel as worried as what I was in London, but I just went out there, tried my hardest, got what I got, 4-second PB, silver medal, I'm happy.
There's no denying navigating the rental market in the Hunter can be a tricky task, particularly when vacancy rates are so low.
Sometimes tenants are very desperate for housing and so they'll sign anything to get a house.
But some are unwittingly committing to unenforceable conditions.
It's mainly private operators who provide agreements that really aren't in line with the tenancies legislation.
Nicole Gergos runs the Hunter Tenants Advice and Advocacy Service, which last year received around 2,500 calls.
We find a lot of students get signed up onto agreements that may not be quite legal. So onerous terms like if you have a visitor, they have to pay a fee to stay, or if you have your heater turned on, you have to pay for that.
Agents on the front line urge all prospective tenants to know what they're signing up for to avoid costly disputes down the track.
That's why it's always good to, when you do sign a lease, you do go through everything. If you have any questions, always ask. Always maybe jot down questions before you sign, just so therefore you know what you're signing into, because it's a legal contract.
Kath Landers, NBN News.
Celebrating his 100th first-grade game, Mick Gill led the Greens out, but early on there wasn't much to cheer about. A penalty to Wanderers' Mark Sherwood made it 3-0. When Merryweather's Aidan Kelso put pressure on Anthony Barrett, his opportunistic kick landed kindly for Louis Dunn. A Kelso penalty put the Greens in front 10-3. Adam Nolan extended that lead on the back of a perfectly worked line-out. The two Blues found a response from close range to get within 7. Another penalty made it 20-10 at the break. The second half started with a bang. As a result, the Greens saw yellow, the two Blues saw red. Another penalty to the Greens gave them a 13-point buffer. A late try to Mark Wade ensured the home side would finish the season in third spot. With their seasons on the line, Edgeworth and Western could be forgiven for early nerves. David Dodd was looking for any excuse after this. The sides remained level as Alex Palozzi blasted his shot wide. Western went closer to opening the scoring, but somehow Michael Ryan and his teammates couldn't beat Ben Smith. At the other end, Brodie Taylor teed up Mark Wilson, who went agonisingly close for Edgeworth. 2 minutes later, Taylor got something on Palozzi's cross and Wilson made no mistake. The second half started poorly for Edgeworth with Joel Wood sent off. Western made the home side pay, Gary McDermott with a great volley to tie things up. No goals in extra time saw the game go to penalties. In the end, Bears keeper Tim Pratt would be the hero, keeping out the Eagles' Steve Krause.
A lot of questions have to be answered yet. It was broad daylight, it's open, it's dry, well lit area, so it is a little bit of a concern that it's happened at this time of the day.
Right on the doorstep of Hunter Stadium, the mining industry. Thousands don fluoro vests in a show of community support for miners of today and those of tomorrow. In the past year, miners in the Hunter haven't had a lot to cheer about.
We've seen 2,000 job losses in coal mining in New South Wales over the past 12 months.
While he's confident the major job losses are over, Stephen Galilee says the state government needs to settle the rules of the game.
The planning system review has been going on for too long. It's taken 2.5 years.
The Minerals Council claims concerns over the effects of coal dust on the community and the potential damage to the environment have stalled progress. The ongoing uncertainty forcing companies to invest elsewhere. Establishing new operations in the Hunter has been made more difficult.
The government is addressing, and the industry are addressing all those concerns. They are the people who are actually working against the orderly development and the economic prosperity of the Hunter Valley.
Gemma Callahan is one of the lucky ones. An operator in the Hunter Valley for the past 5 years, she hopes to keep her job long into the future.
It's good to see the support that we have in the Hunter because it's a large industry and integral part of the Hunter Valley.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
You've got up to 1,000 staff working at Westfield, and you've got 320 spaces. You need to increase that to 700, number one, and number two, you need to make it free.
Starting without the injured Dave Hodgson, Olympic thought they had the opener. But Pat Brown's attempt was ruled out for handball. The Jaffers were struggling for chances until Jobe Wheelhouse created something from inside his own half. His shot didn't trouble Brad Swancott. At the other end, Andrew Swan was brought down, giving Olympics' Mason Campbell a chance to break the deadlock. This challenge earned Jacob Bailey a yellow and saw Michael Sessions helped from the field. As the tackles got tougher, Wheelhouse was booked for a minor infringement. Things were looking up for the Jaffers in the second half, Matthew Kenny with the equaliser. Just as the home side looked to be getting on top, Wheelhouse received a second yellow and Lambton was down to 10 men. 1-1 at full time, and after extra time, the game went to penalties. In the end, a crucial save by Danny Ireland handed victory to Lambton.
Yesterday morning, a 36-year-old Beresfield man was struck from behind by a truck while riding along this section of Minmai Road. State MP Sonia Hornery believes it's a tragedy that could have been avoided. She's calling on Newcastle Council to widen the road and include a cycleway. Brett Hadley has been a competitive and recreational cyclist for almost 40 years. He believes such a move is also needed because friction between motorists and bike riders is growing.
I think so. I think that, but that's a general trend because the road users are increasing both vehicular traffic and cycling traffic.
Mr. Hadley says cyclists are exposed to more dangers now than ever before.
You notice a lot more people texting, so using their phones while they're driving, and that's probably the greatest scare because they have the greatest ability to be inattentive while that's occurring.
Police from the Crash Investigation Unit are still interviewing witnesses. Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News. While it was just a short training ride today, from the start of September, this will be a daily routine for Claire Healy.
I'll be riding my motorcycle from Sydney right around the country and, promoting as much awareness as possible.
A 14,000 kilometre, 35-day journey to draw attention to the fight against Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Claire was born with a rare genetic connective tissue disorder which causes hypermobility in the joints of sufferers. In her case, she's forced to reinsert her own dislocated joints on a daily basis. And as a result, Claire requires surgery to repair damaged joints almost twice a year.
The pain is excruciating, and dislocations, I guess, can be quite painful to say the least, and very debilitating.
While she admits the road ahead is a rocky one, for the time being, this is her sanctuary after a year spent bedridden. Her motorcycle gives her a sense of freedom, and while she hopes to raise much-needed funds to combat the disease, the 28-year-old admits the ride is also about giving herself a new lease on life.
In a lot of ways, it's where I feel most comfortable. I'm sure there's going to be days when my body is going to be absolutely killing me, but fortunately I've found a whole heap of physiotherapists around the country.
And she'll need them. Claire will spend up to 7 hours a day on the bike, but she just hopes to improve the journey of others.
The money goes towards splints and braces and wheelchairs for a number of patients.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
Any wedding is joyous and emotional, even more so for a couple who feared the day would never come. Paul McCarthy and Trent Candler said vows to each other that were 11 years in the making. The only slight downside to the day, the fact they had to travel across the Tasman to legally tie the knot. The Spears Point couple, now husband and among the first married under New Zealand's new laws.
I was just so proud to be here, and it was just an amazing experience, and it really was powerful, I thought.
To be able to marry in the marae, where the idea of unity and acceptance for the whole world was just incredibly meaningful to us.
The pair won a Tourism New Zealand promotion which flew in the grooms and some guests.
We're going back to Australia, and yes, technically our marriage won't be recognised, but you know what, in the back of our heads we know that New Zealand believes in us, and New Zealand is behind us all the way, so that's what's really important.
To be able to be recognised legally as not only married but equal, it's important.
Paul and Trent hope one day to renew their vows legally in Australia. Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
I'd never thought I'd actually beat Jess Long in any race whatsoever, but I thought, well, just go out, try my hardest and see what I get, and so I'm pretty happy with what I got.
With the result hanging in the balance at 10-8, this moment had a major impact. The Knights coach agreed.
Well, I don't know what the sin bin for anymore because nobody ever goes to it, so it's irrelevant in the game.
Not surprisingly, Cooper Cronk thinks a penalty was sufficient.
I think that's what it come down to. I think that Billy was first to the ball, and it wasn't definite whether Darius would have got there. So I'm thankful for that decision.
At today's recovery session, the players were trying to put the incident behind them.
Obviously at the time it was good to get the penalty and the 2 points, but if there's more to it, it's probably for the referees to decide on.
Post-game, Wayne Bennett accused the Storm of going against the spirit of the game by deliberately giving away penalties. Melbourne levelled its own accusation, claiming the Knights put water on the ball before kicking off.
Look, I don't think they're breaking any rules as such, but look, you like to play the game in a spirit, and everyone does that in the game, hopefully.
Rounding out a tough weekend, reports ASADA has the Knights in its sights over the test results of 5 players in 2010-2011.
I had no idea about that. Last time I heard about that was in January when I started talking about that, so I know nothing about that.
From a club point of view, we've been up front with ASADA, whatever their requests have been. We know we have no case to answer, and it's a headline today.
Despite playing for his country 7 times, Nathan Burns simply couldn't break into the first team at Incheon United.
It was really frustrating because I like to train hard and push myself, but I didn't get that window to play any games.
Even after 1 session with the Jets, his mood has already changed.
Just to speak English. I'd go to training, I probably wouldn't have a conversation with anyone all day. It's just small words, small conversations.
After several attempts to bring the 25-year-old to Newcastle, Gary Van Egmond finally has his man.
I love people who go past players, and he's one who goes past players and he can score goals. He can score goals from dribbling and he's both feet in regards to finishing. He can set people up.
Burns will miss the Jets trial game in Canberra on Wednesday, but he is expected to play against Wellington at Western on Saturday. Eventually, he's looking forward to lining up alongside Emil Heskey when he returns to the A-League for the first time since 2008.
Well, it looks different. It definitely does look different. Looks a lot faster, more professional. So I'm excited to get out there and see the level change.
Burns says he appreciates how hard Newcastle worked to get him here. Whether he can stay after January is another story.
We just have to ensure that we get the main benefit out of him right from the beginning.
In the NBN State League, Lambton's Michael Sessions has been ruled out for the rest of the finals following a challenge which left him with bruising on his spine and kidneys.
Creating headlines and Liberal Party turmoil. The candidate for Charlton, Kevin Baker, would now have to campaign to keep his position.
Mr Baker is Tony Abbott's candidate, and Tony Abbott today needs to stand up and take responsibility. He should disendorse Kevin Baker. He should disendorse him.
He's done the wrong thing, no doubt about that. He absolutely has done the wrong thing.
Kevin Baker's website, a forum for car enthusiasts, was taken down overnight. The Daily Telegraph claims it contained links to porn and jokes on a range of topics described by Mr Baker as, quote, tit banter.
These are not jokes. This is a very serious matter.
Labor called for his head, and less than an hour ago, they got it. The Liberal Party says Kevin Baker resigned, and now they won't have a candidate in Greg Combey's former seat of Charlton. The former Australian Apprentice of the Year was unavailable for comment. In a statement this morning through the Liberal Party headquarters, Kevin Baker says his comments were inappropriate. He regrets making them and apologises. His political ambitions over after 5 months. Nat Wallace, NBN News.
We first met Ivy on one of her regular hospital visits when she was just 4. Now, 3 years later, her condition has improved, but her parents are fighting to keep it that way. To treat her immune deficiency, Ivy takes a drug which impacts on her growth and bone density. To counteract that, she undergoes growth hormone treatment, something the government will no longer fund, saying she hasn't shown enough progress.
We ran out of the growth hormone and they just didn't fill the script. Nobody had told us. She was sitting on 96 centimetres before we started, and now she's at 102. And while that's still little for someone her age, for her that's huge. She's gone up a whole dress size and she's gone up 2 shoe sizes and she's loving that.
Without the treatment, specialists say Ivy will see the return of several side effects, so her parents are being forced to buy it themselves for $165 a week. Not easy with 7 children.
We'll do it, but it seems sad that it all comes down to somebody in an office making decisions about our daughter.
Ivy's medical team is fighting the decision, while the family wrote a letter to their local MP, Joel Fitzgibbon, who said he would pass it on to the Health Minister. After being contacted by NBN News Today, Mr Fitzgibbon said the family will have an answer by next week. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
This issue has been passed from person to person, and we really want to stop, take the time out, take the heat out of the debate and ask people to base their opinion on asylum seekers on facts.
He's a rough diamond to polish him up, so I have bought him a cake of Solvol so he can scrub himself of an evening, and he looks $1 million.
He's doing a good job now, but this is probably the jewel in his crown.
It might just be a jam session in Largs Community Hall, but the Crawford brothers are ready to take on the world. Last week, the group won the Australasian Battle of the Bands final. In December, the quartet will head to Bangkok for a chance to be crowned the best new band in the world.
There's 100,000 US, so I think it's roughly about 112,000 at the moment with the dollar. So yeah, it's pretty big money.
Brothers Ben and Zach were runners-up in 2008 as part of the 70s-inspired rock group known as Power Age. But since then, they've undergone a revolution.
Can't really put it in a genre, but we take influence from like bands like the Black Keys and The Script, Matchbox 20, people like that.
The change in sound, coupled with the addition of bass player Ben Lawrence and drummer Pete Downtong, and the group thinks it has what it takes to win the title.
We're all getting a lot better musically and our songs are advancing a fair bit, and I think we've got a pretty good chance.
Chances are, if they crack the big time, they'll be playing in front of crowds a lot bigger than this. Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
Day 2 of the Trainee Championships started the same way Day 1 ended, competitors confronted with blustery conditions. Unlike Round 1, the red-hot scoring was on the slide. Even the overnight leader was finding the going a little tough. Richard Galichan fired a course record 10 under par yesterday, but couldn't produce that sort of form 2 days in a row. His 1 over par round of 73 still gives him a handy buffer. Sydney's Alex Pitty looms as Galichan's main rival. He also shot a second round 73 to move into outright second. Defending champion Jack Wilson was his own harshest critic. The 22-year-old completed a frustrating day at even par, equaling his opening round. Fellow Victorian Ashley Blake wasn't so lucky. He backed up a 70 with a 74, but still managed to hold on to equal third. Charlestown's Jamie Hook hits the ball harder than most. He was one of the few front-runners who improved on their score from Day 1, now sitting at 3 over for the tournament. Fellow Hunter golfer Clayton Bridges is moving in the right direction. This birdie on 15 was part of a round of 71, a vast improvement on his 77 yesterday. Former Muswellbrook golfer Jordana Keaton-Matthews is one of the few women in the event. She's 3 shots behind the leading female Emily Murray. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. A good qualifying session can mean the difference between competing with the best drivers in the series and fighting your way from the back of the pack.
It hasn't really come together for us in any qualifying session, but it's got to eventually.
In race 2 at Ipswich, Drew Russell showed what he can do when he starts near the front of the grid. Despite surrendering an early lead, he scored Novocastrian Motorsport's first ever podium finish.
It started raining before the race, so I was probably a little bit too cautious to begin with, and that's what cost me the lead. But the pace was there, we were able to hold the spot. Shame we didn't win, but still take second.
Younger brother Aaron is also starting to ruffle some feathers up the front.
A lot of drivers are really good to race around, but some you just got to really watch your mirrors and watch everything and prepare for a hit at some stage.
He now sits in 6th overall, every race a step closer to the main game.
They're definitely noticing us. We talk to them every weekend. We're up there. We're always trying to get our name in there, and a few people have actually offered us tests.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Labor's new face now a lone figure at pre-polling. The Liberal Party won't contest the seat. Charlton now seemingly safer than it's ever been.
I think in the end the Liberal candidate made the right decision. Those comments were unacceptable.
Kevin Baker still isn't talking 24 hours after he quit. Yesterday, it emerged he operated a website containing sexist and inappropriate comments. The matter described by some as a lesson for all in public life.
It's politics. It's sort of what one expects in politics, that people in the sort of electoral tussle will use whatever they can.
And the reaction has been mixed.
Mate, you've got to be squeaky clean.
I'd like to see him stand, or somebody from the Liberal Party.
In a way, he still is. It's too late to change the ballot papers. Kevin Baker is disendorsed and won't be campaigning as an independent, but he can technically still win.
His name appears on the ballot paper, it stays on the ballot paper, and people will be entitled to vote and the votes will count.
The last time someone won their seat after being dumped by their party was in 1996, when voters rallied behind Pauline Hanson. The fear now, there could be a lot of informal votes.
They just need to know that they need to number every box, even Mr Baker's box, in whatever order they want, otherwise their vote won't be counted.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
Scenes like these frustrate Katara residents, vehicles filling local streets instead of Westfield's car parks.
All we want is Westfield to be responsible for their staff to be parked within Westfield, not on the streets.
Now they fear it could get worse. Last night, Newcastle Lord Mayor Jeff McCloy used his casting vote to greenlight changes to the retail giant's expansion plans. 250 parking spots will be lost for a cinema precinct, more shops and restaurants.
The statutes and our rules and regulations call for so many car parking. That company exceeds that.
It will increase the number of cars that park in the local streets. You've got 3 major schools, you've got an enormous amount of staff in the local residential area parking because they don't want to pay the staff parking fees.
Westfield has agreed to increase staff parks, which cost up to $4 a day, from $320 to $400. But Councillor Tim Crackenthorpe says that's not enough.
Ideally, it would be great to see 700 parking spaces for staff and they be free.
Council is expected to start a traffic study in the next few weeks.
I'm going back out there with a couple of our other councillors to have a talk and have a listen, watch it firsthand, ask some questions.
Diana Bushby, NBN News.
We've looked at more than 150 coal trains for the study. We have a very detailed picture now of exactly what happens to particle concentrations as coal trains pass.
They're a lifeline for seafarers in trouble, providing assistance right along the coast. More than 3,000 marine rescue volunteers statewide donate their time to ensure help is at hand 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
We've got a very vast range of experiences and skills
people that engineers on boats and people that have worked in radio rooms in other environments.
The Port Stephens arm responds to around 200 calls for assistance each year. Most jobs centre around getting stranded skippers out of trouble.
If you're 20 miles out to sea and the winds are coming up and the night is coming on, but of course we also get the serious emergencies where people are missing in the water or boats are sinking or boats are on fire.
Now, to ensure no call goes unanswered, the command is in the process of installing a new radio system.
Technology has changed in leaps and bounds. Digital radio communication is significantly different and significantly better than what we've had for the last 20 or 25 years.
And with the summer boating season just around the corner, people are being urged to register online with Marine Rescue before hitting the water.
If they end up in any sort of problem, we've got the information before they're put under some element of stress or pressure, and we can activate our crews and our boats to go out and assist them.
Kath Landers, NBN News.
It's a big rap. Dane Gagai's footwork has been compared to that of Justin Hodges. Neville Costigan's played with both and thinks his current teammate has the goods.
Yeah, definitely. He's got a lot of potential there. I think they're the same sort of players. They like the ball early and use their footwork and that. And I see heaps of similarities about them.
This weekend, the Knights head to Townsville to face the Cowboys, who are lurking just outside the top 8. Newcastle is just hanging on to 7th.
We really need to win this one, and we're looking good this week at training.
The Knights will again rely heavily on playmaker Jared Mullen.
I reckon he's improved just this year with his kicking game. It makes it so much easier when his kicking game's on, and he's getting that more consistently done now.
In other team news, Adam Cuthbertson's injured groin is on the mend, and David Farlongo has been cleared of a fractured eye socket and will start from the bench. Meanwhile, Robbie Rocco has been named in the NRL's Academic Team of the Year. The 22-year-old is midway through a civil engineering degree at the University of Newcastle.
It's good to be recognised for a bit of off-field. It's something I've done for a while now, so to get a bit of recognition is always good.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News. Round 18 of the real NRL, and both Wests and Macquarie are limping home. With Tom Liddon gone for the season for the Rosellas and Jade Porter and Zach Walsh in doubt, Brad Murray is likely to return in the halves. Macquarie is desperate to claim its first minor premiership in 53 years. Souths beat the Scorps last week. Coach Adam Bettridge says the Lions' return to form is all about attitude. This weekend, they'll be tested by the Goannas, who have only lost one game in the second round of the competition.
They've got tremendous halves in Suyu and Riley Brown and the whole round. They've got a lot of experience with the Metcalf boys and just a lot of players there that have been there and done it.
Matt Shipway has been instrumental for the Lions in recent weeks.
Matty's probably last year this year. He's going to pull stumps, so I think he deserves the reward. He got the club to where it is now and I've just taken his lead.
Souths will also hold its annual charity day this weekend. Today, former player and cancer survivor Peter Sleep got the ball rolling, donating a signed Andrew Johns jersey along with a cheque for $2,500 to the Marta Ladies Auxiliary. Souths hopes to raise more than $15,000 for local causes.
This Saturday is a very, very special day, not only for myself, for the South community, who also helped me through, but to a lot of charities.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
It's been a turbulent week for the Liberal Party in the seat of Charlton. Candidate Kevin Baker quit following revelations he ran a website containing sexist and inappropriate comments. But today was business as usual for the remaining candidates and those from Shortland at a meet and greet with representatives from local companies. Missing in action, Shortland's Liberal candidate John Church. His office says he was called away at the last minute to an event on the Central Coast. Labor's Jill Hall was a familiar face on the panel, having held Shortland since 1998.
What I'm there for is to make sure that a real commitment is made to the people of this area.
And now, without a Liberal opponent, winning Charlton is thought to be an easier prospect for her colleague Pat Conroy.
I'm hopeful, but you can never take anything for granted.
But a new party is vying for voter attention.
The Liberal Party have asked me to say that a vote for me is a vote also to make sure that Labor doesn't get in, both federally and in Charlton.
Bronwyn Reid and Phil Baldwin were today determined to get the Palmer Party noticed.
I'm sick of the lies, I'm sick of the deceit, I'm sick of the way that spending is completely out of control.
While first-time politician Jane Oakley is standing in Shortland for the Greens.
It's important to give voters a choice and to give them a viable alternative to the traditional parties.
Diana Bushby, NBN News.
We're not convinced of the scientific dangers that are involved with coal seam gas, so at this point we're quite happy to wait and see.
This is no longer frowned upon by parenting experts and researchers, but it depends on which game's being played.
Things are definitely changing when it comes to computer games. We now have a new word called serious computer games, and they're specifically designed to actually make you more healthy.
So-called serious games promote positive behaviour, such as eating more vegetables and being more physically active. They're apps that give new meaning to the old adage about an apple a day keeping the doctor away.
But what we know now is we can harness that technology and help make parents' life easier, and things like getting them to eat more fruit and vegetables using a computer game.
Researcher Claire Collins says a visiting US academic is currently introducing Australian students to a computer game clinically proven to increase fruit and vegetable consumption. It's called Squire's Quest 2.
Which will take kids through the kingdom of five a lot, help them develop their plans and practice eating and making healthy vegetable recipes in a virtual world before they come and do it in the kitchen themselves.
Newcastle senior academic Jeff Skinner is also developing computer games designed to motivate kids to exercise.
We want to integrate elements of exercise into the games. That comes under a general classification of active video games or exergames.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It's a serene vista from Barry Maitland's home office, but his thoughts are of treachery and intrigue. This is the double life of a crime writer.
This is now the 12th book in the series that I've written with these same two detective characters, and they're investigating a murder on a canal, the Regent's Canal, which runs right through the middle of London.
The Raven's Eye takes readers into the dark and dangerous world of seasoned cops Brock and Collar. Barry grew up in London before moving to Australia, where he was Professor of Architecture at the University of Newcastle. He's now retired, but is busier than ever, living his dream of writing.
Having more time now to do it, when I don't have a day job, I think the stories become maybe a little bit richer and more complicated, perhaps.
Critics have compared his novels to the likes of crime great Ruth Rendell. He's humble, but appreciates the allure of the genre.
People want to read a really great story, and crime stories have that added edge, I think. The characters are under pressure.
And already Barry Maitland, of Maitland, is working on his next offering.
The most difficult thing is ordering takeaway over the phone, actually. It's sort of Maitland, yes, but what's your name? But it's a lovely, peaceful spot to to write, I suppose it's an ideal kind of setting for a writer, actually.
After starting the day 5 shots behind, Jamie Hook turned at the 9th, needing to pull 7 back. A bogey at 12 left him with an even bigger task. It looked like Jack Wilson was the best chance of catching runaway leader Richard Galashan. He began 6 shots back, but was getting lost off the tee. With only 7 holes to play, Galashan's rivals needed him to drop his bundle to be any chance. A nervous Hook looked to steady the ship, but it was the ball striking of the Sydney-sider that the gallery had come to see. A birdie tightened his grip on the lead. Despite some advice from Dad, a costly 3-putt on 14 ended any chance of a Hook comeback. Wilson was still a contender. This chip in on 15, the shot of the day. And while it looked like Galashan and Hook were playing marbles instead of golf, the defending champ was getting the job done from the beach. Galashan's putts continued to drop, but so did his composure. Suddenly, the man who fired a course record in the opening round was in a spot of trouble, and on the green, the cracks started to appear. The 29-year-old double bogeyed, while Wilson saved par. It was game on heading into the last hole, and while Wilson chose a driver off the tee, Galashan stuck with his game plan, opting to lay up with a 2-iron. It was the right choice, and with the crowd behind him, any nerves went out the window. He found the green and knocked this putt in for par to complete the wire-to-wire victory with his worst round of the tournament. Galashan will bank a winner's cheque of just over $6,000.
Anytime you've got a big lead, you can get into a trap where you protect, and that's what I really didn't want to do, was come out and try and play the course the way I've been playing it and just play to my game plan. And if anyone was going to catch me from 5 or 6 behind, then I was going to take a pretty good round.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
It's important that the younger people get our message, because there's not too many of us left that have got these terrible memories of seeing houses washed away, people drowned.